These notes are over solving quadratic equations by factoring. We have to know how to factor to be able to solve these quadratics. So I did some video notes not too long ago over factoring quadratics. So if you are not comfortable with factoring, you need to go look those video notes up. So here we're solving 9y squared plus 3y equals 0. So there's only two terms here, and both of the terms have a y. So I'm able to solve these by finding the greatest common factor. So a 3 goes into both 9 and 3, so I can factor out a 3. And a y goes into y squared and y, so I'm factoring out a 3y. And if I factor out a 3y, I'm left with 3y plus 1. Because if I were to distribute it back together, 3y times 3y is 9y squared. 3y times 1 is 3y. So I have 3y times 3y plus 1 equals 0. And now to take it one step further to solve, we're going to set each individual factor equal to 0 and solve them. So I have 3y equals 0 and I have 3y plus 1 equals 0. So now over here, 3y equals 0. So to solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So I get y equals 0. And to solve for y over here, I'm going to subtract 1. So I have 3y equals negative 1. Then I'm going to divide by 3. So my second solution is that y equals negative 1/3. So there are my two solutions, 0 and negative 1/3. Okay, I'm solving the quadratic x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. So first off, factoring these quadratics, I always do a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 15. So 1 times negative 15 is negative 15. I need factors of negative 15 that add up to negative 2. So that's going to be a negative 5 and a positive 3. They multiply to give me negative 15. They add to give me negative 2. And since a is 1, I can jump straight into my factors being x minus 5, x plus 3 equals 0. So since we're solving, we're now going to take each factor and set them equal to 0 and solve them. So x minus 5 equals 0, so I need to add 5 to each side. So I get that x equals 5. And then x plus 3 equals 0, so I'm going to subtract 3. So I also get that x equals negative 3. So there are my two solutions. I'm solving 5x squared plus 34x plus 24 equals 0. So I have to do 5 times 24, which, let me see here. 5 times 24 is 120. And I need factors of 120 that add up to 34, which would be 30 times 4. 30 times 4 is 120. 30 plus 4 is 34. So I have x plus 30, x plus 4. But since a isn't 1, I have to go that one step further of dividing each factor by 5. 30 is able to be divided by 5, so that factor actually is x plus 6. But 4 can't be divided by 5, so that's 5x, because you have to bring the 5 in the front. 5x plus 4 equals 0. And now to finish this up, to solve for x, you're going to set each individual factor equal to 0. So x plus 6 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 6. So x equals negative 6. And then I have 5x plus 4 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 4. So I get 5x equals negative 4. Divide by 5. So my two solutions are x equals negative 6 and negative 4/5. So I have two solutions there. Okay, solving x squared minus 8x plus 15. So I can do a, which is 1, times 15, which is 15. So 1 times 15 is 15. I need factors of 15 that add up to negative 8. So that gives me negative 5 and negative 3. So x minus 5, x minus 3 equals 0. And a is 1, so I don't have to worry about dividing. So I can just set each individual factor equal to 0 and solve. So x minus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to add 5. So x equals 5. And then x minus 3 equals 0. So add 3. So x equals 3. So my two solutions are 5 and 3. I have 3s squared minus 11s minus 4 equals 0. So I need to do 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. I need factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 11. So that's negative 12 and positive 1. So I can say it's x minus 12, x plus 1. But a is not 1, so I have to divide each factor by 3. 12 is divisible by 3, so it's x minus 4. Ooh. 1 isn't divisible by 3, so that's 3x plus 1 equals 0. And now I'm going to set each individual factor equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0. So that's x equals 4. And then 3x plus 1 equals 0. So I need to subtract 1. So that's 3x equals negative 1. Divide by 3. So x equals negative 1/3. So 4 and negative 1/3. Those are my two solutions. Okay, now write in the quadratic and standard form given the zeros are negative 2 and 6. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working backwards here. So we have our solutions. We have that x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 6. So those are my two solutions. So my first step is I need to go from writing my solutions to putting them back into a factored form. So I'm going to move my numbers back over. So it's negative 2 here, so I'm going to add 2 to each side. So one of my factors is x plus 2. Over here I have x equals 6, so to move 6 over, I'm going to have to subtract 6 from each side. So my second factor is x minus 6. Well, now that I have my two factors, to put them together to get it back in standard form, we're just going to have to FOIL, the double distribution. And you can do FOIL or you can do the box method, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to FOIL. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. So I finish up that f of x equals x squared minus 4x minus 12. So there is my standard form given that my zeros are negative 2 and 6. So you have to get your zeros, move them back to be factors, and then multiply your factors together. Here we're writing a quadratic in standard form given that our zeros are roots, which zeros, roots, x-intercepts, and solutions are all the same thing. But they are 1/2 and negative 5. So I have x equals 1/2 and x equals negative 5. Now, we never have factors that are like x plus 1/2, x minus 1/2, x plus 2/3. We don't have fractions as our factors. So we're going to have to take this in multiple steps to put x equals 1/2 into a factored form. So my first step is to get rid of it being a fraction. So to do that is I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. Because when I multiply the right side by 2, those are gone now. So I have now 2x equals 1. And now I just have to subtract 1 from each side to get it all by itself. So 2x minus 1 is my first factor. My second one, x equals negative 5, so I'm just going to add 5 to each side. So my second factor is x plus 5. Now that I have them in factored form, I can FOIL them together. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 5 is plus 10x. Negative x times 1 is negative x, and negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. So my solution, my equation is f of x equals 2x squared plus, why is it not writing? There it goes, plus 9x minus 5. So there's my standard form. Okay, so I'm writing a quadratic equation given that my roots are negative 3/4 and 5. So I'm going to start off by writing out x equals negative 3/4. X equals 5. Now, I can't leave this as a fraction, so what I'm going to do to get rid of the fraction is I'm going to multiply both sides by 4 to get rid of that fraction. So I have 4x equals negative 3. And now to get the 3 over, I'm just going to add 3 to each side. So I get that my first factor is 4x plus 3. And then over here, x equals 5, so I'm going to subtract 5 from each side so that my second factor is x minus 5. So now I just need to multiply these together to get this in standard form. So 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times negative 5 is negative 20x. 3 times x is positive 3x, and 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So we get 4x squared minus 17x minus 15. So it's going to be B. And that is it for solving quadratics by factoring and rewriting your quadratic equation given your solutions.